All right, let's get into it. Today, we're digging into a really profound Russian philosophical movement. And this wasn't just about contemplating the meaning of life. No, this was about redesigning it, and on a cosmic scale. It's a fascinating story.
So let me start by posing a question. What if our main goal as a species was to conquer death and bring back every single person who has ever lived? Now, for a group of thinkers in 19th century Russia, this was not some sci-fi fantasy. This was the absolute, central, ultimate goal of a philosophy called Russian Cosmism.
And this idea, it wasn't just a daydream. It was a serious intellectual tradition that came up with a vision for humanity's future that was, well, quite literally out of this world.
So what exactly is Cosmism? Well, you can think of it as a project-based philosophy. The core idea is that humanity's job here on Earth isn't finished, not by a long shot. We're supposed to take the reins of our own evolution, use our collective brain power to overcome death, bring back everyone who came before us, and then expand outwards to settle the entire cosmos. It's a very active, forward-looking plan for all of us.
Now, a vision this huge, this monumental, had to start somewhere. And it all began in the mind of one pretty unassuming guy who lived a quiet life, but was nurturing an idea that spanned the entire universe. So let's meet him.
This is Nikolai Fedorovich Fedorov, and what's so incredible here is the contrast between the man and his ideas. I mean, he was a humble Moscow librarian, and yet his thinking was so profound that he was a major influence on literary giants like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. For Fedorov, the root of all human suffering, war, poverty, death itself, it all came down to one thing, our disunity. And he came up with a single, massive project to fix it all.
See, Fedorov didn't just have an idea. He had a plan, a detailed, step-by-step blueprint for all of humanity. He called it the philosophy of the common task.
And this just shows you the sheer scale of his thinking. For Fedorov, it was all a logical progression. First, humanity has to stop fighting and unite. Simple enough, right? With that collective power, we could then learn to control nature itself, everything from the weather to disease. The next logical step? Apply that knowledge to our own biology and achieve immortality. And the final, ultimate moral duty, the capstone of the whole project, was to use that mastery over matter and life to resurrect every single ancestor, particle by particle.
So, after Fedorov, his vision was so powerful that it actually inspired two very different groups of followers. They both loved the idea of the common task, but they took it in completely new and separate directions. The movement basically split in two. On one side, you had the religious Cosmists. For them, the common task was a spiritual project, a kind of partnership between humanity and God. But on the other side, you had the scientific Cosmists. They saw things very differently. For them, resurrection and immortality weren't matters of faith at all. They were just supreme engineering challenges, problems that could be solved with enough science, technology, and of course, cosmic expansion.
And this right here is the crucial turning point. Because while one branch of Cosmism went deeper into theology and metaphysics, the other set its sights firmly on the stars and ended up changing the world. Okay, so let's follow that second path. Let's connect the dots from the seemingly abstract ideas of a 19th century librarian all the way to the very real hardware of the 20th century space race.
This is Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. You've probably heard of him. He's known today as the father of modern rocketry and astronautics, but he was also a huge follower of Fedorov's philosophy. For Tsiolkovsky, space exploration wasn't just some cool scientific adventure, it was a moral and evolutionary duty. It was the only way humanity could find enough space and resources for billions of resurrected ancestors and a newly immortal population.
This timeline just lays it out perfectly. You can draw a straight line from philosophy to physics. So in the 1880s, Fedorov lays out the philosophical why for going to space. A few decades later, his follower Tsiolkovsky provides the scientific how with his game-changing rocket equation. And then, in 1957, the Soviet Union, building directly on Tsiolkovsky's work, launches Sputnik and kicks off the space age.
So the big takeaway here is that the Soviet space program had this incredibly profound philosophical engine driving it. The whole quest to reach the stars was powered, at least in part, by this deep-seated belief that it was humanity's grandest and most essential purpose.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. I mean, today when we talk about colonizing Mars or developing technologies for radical life extension, pushing the boundaries of what it even means to be human, you have to wonder, Are these really new ambitions? Or are we, without even knowing it, just the latest generation to take up that common task imagined by a Moscow librarian over a century ago?